What's an everyday item that has a hidden feature most people don't know about? If you get an email in Outlook and you don't want to deal with it right then, but also don't want to forget it altogether, right-click or select the three dots on the email and select Snooze. Pick when you want the message to reappear, later that day, the next morning, etc., and it will be delivered at the top of your inbox at that time. Smartphones have a small, low-powered speaker that can be held up to your ear so that only you will be able to hear your phone conversation, instead of everyone around you having to listen to your speakerphone. Rubbing alcohol kills bugs within seconds. Pour it into a spray bottle and go on a killing spree in a well-ventilated area. On CD players, when you hold rewind, you can go into negative seconds on an applicable track. Some albums use the negative seconds on a CD to put an in-between opening to a song, so that when you skip to the song, you also skip the opening. More interesting is an example like Reliant K's album. If you hold rewind on the very first track long enough and let go, you will hear the album's hidden track, which is also the album's title track at that. It's mostly an instrumental with humming, but it's good and interesting and sadly a great novel way of hiding hidden tracks that quickly is disappearing with the masses move to digital. Edit. Just wanted to thank you all for showing me so many other albums that did this. It's crazy how many of them did, yet I only really knew about a few. Like, even knowing about this little secret didn't make it something I regularly checked for, simply because of how obscure and rare I already knew it to be. Most vegetable peelers have a metal ring on the side. It's to dig out black spots from potatoes. I prefer gouge out the eyes, which is technically accurate. A word. You can set custom keyboard shortcuts. I use @ to paste my email and an N to paste my address. It's really useful. Edit for iPhone settings, general keyboard text replacement. What is a food that makes you think, how did humans discover this was edible? Almost every edible mushroom. Lots of trial and error there, I bet. There's a fruit in Brazil that needs to be cooked around 7 days, otherwise it's toxic. Day 6, everyone's puking and shitting. Let's try again, this time for 7 days, and see if we can eat it. Chocolate? I mean, don't get me wrong. I get why they were playing around with the plant and all. The sheer process of getting to chocolate as a product is so weird and bizarre and kinda gross, and then it comes out as the lovely candy we know and love. Early potatoes were small, hard, and poisonous. Methods of making them not poisonous included soaking them in running water for weeks, or, in the high Andes, leaving them out on rocks high in the mountains so they effectively freeze-dried. Alternatively, you could mix them with clay when eating them. The clay would absorb some of the toxins. Cheese is weird. Hey, Og, that milk you were storing has gone weird and lumpy. Should I throw it out? Nah, it's still good. Pass it here. What the fuck was bread guy doing? What compelled him to collect tiny pieces of grain, dry them out, smash them into a powder, get them wet again, but not too wet, and then put the whole thing over fire? What is a hard pill to swallow, but makes everything easier once you do? Sometimes, you're the problem. If one person tells you you're a shitty person, it could be a grudge, vendetta. If multiple unconnected people tell you you're a shitty person, maybe you should do some introspection. No matter how good someone may be, bad things can still come to them. Likewise, horrible people can still have good things come to them. The world's not fair and equal. The world does not care about you the way you think it should. You do not owe loyalty to your employer. You are disposable. It's never a good idea to get gas in the morning before work. Get gas now. People don't talk about you or care about you as much as you think they do. We judge other people by their actions or the results of those actions. We judge ourselves by our intentions. What was the weirdest trend in school when you were younger? We used to make a fist and put it face down on the bathroom counter. Then someone would take a quarter and shoot it along the counter towards the knuckles. Whoever was bleeding the most was the tough one. We called it Bloody Knuckles. It was a very stupid game. Wearing multiple polo shirts and popping the collar on all of them. Kids would wear an insane amount of those silicone bracelets, the Livestrong ones and the million other similar variations that came shortly afterwards, all up both their wrists and forearms. For reference, when Crisscross Jump came out, some dipshits actually showed up at school with their clothing on backwards. The choking game was a thing in my grade school in the early 90s. Kids would choke each other out to get the head buzz. The oddest trend that swept through our school like a whirlwind of eccentricity was the era of pencil spinning. Picture this. Students meticulously perfecting the art of twirling their writing utensils between their fingers as if auditioning for a circus act. It was a mesmerizing spectacle to behold during class, transforming the mundane task of note-taking into a performance art piece. The craze may have faded, but the memories of our pen-twirling prowess remain etched in the annals of school history. I went to HS at the height of the MySpace scene times. Tails, drain pipes, skinny jeans that you could hardly move in, coontails, raccoon-tail dyed hair. What are some questions you should be asking on a first date? Is there anybody who would be angry to see you with me? Cross your fingers and hope she says, "My father." Learn the hard way. Are you settled here, or could you see yourself moving out of the area in the near future? What is your mother's maiden name? What is your favorite food? What elementary school did you attend? First date is about getting to know the person, so I'd ask about hobbies, future plans, personality like morals and stuff, what makes them laugh or happy, what makes them sad or angry, etc. My job on the first date is to know if this person is a potential lover or just friends, or we shouldn't talk anymore. You guys are going way too hard with this, LMAO. Do you have a criminal record? Are you HIV positive? Are y'all on a date, or are you building a profile? Go for the softballs that are still important. Opinions on kids? Basic worldview questions. Questions about their childhood, siblings, and parents and stuff. Not trauma fishing, but like, do you have siblings? Are your parents still alive? Grandparents? Where do they live? Fish for anecdotes. Give a few yourself. You are literally on a first date. If there's a second date, that's when you get deeper. If someone asks me to disclose my HIV status before our entrees arrive on the first date, I'm dipping out. What that says to me is that the person lacks social grace and patience. I'm not interested in maximum efficiency. I'm looking for someone capable of navigating life maturely and within the normal confines of human interaction. On a first date, you're strangers. I don't tell strangers medical information. Don't think about it. Just be yourself and have a chat, as if you're talking to a friend. You'll be fine. What's the most bizarre coincidence you've ever personally experienced? Ran into my childhood best friend in a tiny cafe in Paris. Neither of us living in France or knowing the other was traveling. We hadn't spoken in 10+ years since moving to different countries. It was like the universe decided it was time for a reunion. Talk about a small world. Started a job at company A, returned to my old company B to train their new hire for a day. It turned out he was the person I replaced at company A. Living in DC, a work friend started dating a woman. He invited me to her birthday party, which was the same birthday as mine. I showed up, and we found out we were born the same year. Wow, coincidence. Then I said, "But you weren't born in town in Massachusetts." She laughed and said, "Haha, very funny. He told you that?" Yep, she was born in the same hospital on the same day, delivered by the same doctor. We called our mothers. I was traveling with my family in Switzerland, and we met this family from Quebec with kids the same age as my sister and I. We spent our vacation with these kids and then moved on. About 4 years later, we were traveling again, this time in Beijing of all places, when we ran into the same family. Once I sold a box of action figures/collectibles to a local store, which then sold the whole box to his buddy who does yard sales/flea markets. Years later, my mother was yard sailing and saw a box of collectibles she thought I'd like to have from my eBay store. Well, it was the same box I had sold years earlier, even still had a tag with my name on the cardboard that she didn't notice till I pointed it out. I was adopted at birth, found my bio family at age 17 or so. During a conversation with my younger brother some years later, we discovered that we had went to the same school for about a year. During that same conversation, we showed each other photos of us when we were younger, and turns out I was his reading buddy, as in an older student that comes to read with younger kids once a week. 20 years ago, my cousin bought his first house, and my brother lived in the basement. I needed a place to crash for a couple weeks, so I moved into the basement until I found an apartment of my own. A few years later, my cousin sold the house to someone else. A couple years after that, one of my good friends and his wife bought their first house. He gave me the address to help him move in, and when I showed up, I realized it was the same house that my cousin had bought, and I had ultimately lived in the basement of. That's not the end, though. A few years later, my buddy sold the house to another young married couple. I started seeing a new girl that I met at work, and she invited me over to her place one night. I showed up, and it was the same house. She was renting a room from the young couple that had bought the house from my buddy. The city I live in has a population of about 130K, so it's not like it was a small town where there were only 3 houses for sale. Just a really weird coincidence that this same house came into my life 3x over the span of 10 years, all with different friends, family members owning it. Well, that's another episode of Ask Reddit in the books. I really appreciate all of you who made it this far into the video. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, it would really help the channel out a lot if you gave the video a thumbs up, subscribe, or leave a comment down below. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.